Exodus chapter 1. Okay, a tale of two mothers. That's the title of my sermon. It's Mother's Day. I had to do something about mums. So when I say the title is a tale of two mothers, for those of you who know the Word of God, you're probably thinking, it's about Solomon and those two mothers. But actually, this is not about Solomon. This is about two other mothers, and that's quite amazing how God used these two to fulfill His purposes. You know, God can do what God wants to do because He's God and He can, okay? So I want to share this story tonight because this year for our church we're focusing on growing our faith, and this story will help grow your faith, okay? Now, this is a story about back in the days of the children of Israel when they were slaves in Egypt, and it says that there was a king. His name was Pharaoh. The king's name was Pharaoh in Egypt at the time. And at the time when Joseph went in there was favour upon his life. But after that, there was another Pharaoh or another king that arose, okay? And he started giving problems to the children of Israel. For a time, things were going okay for them there, but then things began to change. So it says in Exodus chapter 1, "Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people," so he said to the Egyptians, "Look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we." So these people, these Israelites who are living in our land, are actually starting to outgrow us. And they're starting to actually do better than us. So he's feeling threatened. Okay? So he says to his people, "Look, children of Israel are more and mightier than we." But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were in dread of the children of Israel. So they started putting them to slavery and to building things and making them do hard labour. But the more they afflicted them, the worse they treated them, the more the children of Israel actually multiplied and grew. So the more pressure and stress and challenge that came to them, the better they were. And sometimes we think, I don't want any afflictions in my life, I don't want any problems, I don't want any stress or pressure in my life. But sometimes God will use that to cause you to multiply and to grow. So Pharaoh has felt fear, and now it says that they were in dread. So they went from fear to dread. So their negativity is beginning to escalate. And then it says we go down a few verses, and then it says, "Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives." So they've tried to stop the workforce, and that didn't work. And so now the king of Egypt is speaking to the Hebrew midwives. He says, "When you do the duties of a midwife for the Hebrew women, and you see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall kill him. But if it's a daughter, then she shall live." It's kind of ironic. It's the opposite these days in some countries, okay? They will do the exact opposite. So he's basically saying now to the midwives, when these Hebrew or these Israelite women, when they have about to give birth, if it's a boy, kill that child. If it's a girl, let the child live, okay? That's how threatened they felt, that they're actually going to the point of killing the children now, all right? But the midwives feared God. These are Egyptian midwives who are helping deliver Hebrew babies, okay? The midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the male children alive. Wow, I think the hand of God was with them, okay? And they're actually named. So even though they were commanded to kill, they did not. And then it says, the midwives said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's going, "What is going on? Why are all these boys being born. What's happening here? Why aren't you doing what I told you to do? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them. So they're basically saying that they are really strong and healthy and they just give birth very quickly and we can't stop it. So it says, therefore God dealt well with the midwives and the people multiplied and grew. So God was with them and took care of the midwives and of these children that they were having. Okay? So that's kind of the background here. There is an incredible threat against the babies in the land, but God is intervening. Then we go down into Exodus chapter 2 and we read a specific story right here. It says, a man of the house of Levi, this is from the Israelite people, man of the house of Levi, went and took as wife a daughter of Levi. So same tribe. Levi means joined or connected to God. So the woman conceived and bore a son. Okay, so this child obviously is under threat, just like the rest of the boys. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him for 3 months. Okay? She hid him for 3 months because he was under threat. All the children were under threat at the time. She's aware of the situation. It did not deter them from getting married and having a child, okay? Even though there was a 50-50 chance it was going to be a boy, they still decided to have a child. It says in Hebrews chapter 11, because we are looking, it's Mother's Day, so we're looking towards the parents, but also the mum. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden 3 months. So mum hid him at the home for 3 months. Hidden 3 months by his parents because they saw he was a beautiful child. And they were not afraid of the king's command. So here you're getting an indication that these parents actually know God and fear God, that they truly are Levites, that they truly are connected to God, that they are God-fearing people who hear from the Lord and who believe God. It says they were not afraid of the king's command. You know, sometimes people can say things and threaten and can put fear into your heart or put dread in your life. But it says they didn't fear and they didn't dread. In fact, they seemed to have some sort of confidence or hope. And it says they hid him because they saw he was a beautiful child. Does that mean he was just handsome and beautiful? Oh, he's so cute. Was it because he was a beautiful child? In some of the translations, it says, 3 times it says, she saw that he was a goodly child. So it's not just his physical features. There was something about this baby. She knew there was something really special about him. She could just feel it. She sensed it, okay? So it was not just his lovely appearance, but it says he was fair to God. There was something special. The hand of God was on this child. And so it says they hid him and they were not afraid. They knew that something special, something of God was on this child. And so they were not afraid. No matter what the king said, they knew that the hand of God was at play. But then it says when she could no longer hide him, so after 3 months she could no longer hide him at home, she took an ark of bulrushes for him. She daubed it with asphalt and pitch. She put the child in it and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done with him. So what's this saying? Basically she made this little vessel, this little ark, like a mini bamboo cane kind of basket thing. And she put him in it and then she sealed it with pitch. Pitch was the same sort of stuff that Noah used to seal the ark so that the water couldn't come in, it wouldn't sink and the kid wouldn't drown, okay? So she's protecting him, she's sealing him in. And it's kind of a prophetic thing. It's like we are sealed with the Holy Spirit. So he was sealed in this protective place. And so she is releasing her faith as she is no longer able to hide him here. She's releasing him further into the purposes of God. She hides him in the home. Now she's going to hide him by the river. Not because she couldn't bear to see him die, because the command was all these kids, all these sons have to be thrown in the river. If they're born, then all the sons have to be thrown into the river and killed. Okay, so there was a command to kill them no matter what, because the midwives weren't doing their job, supposedly. Then the next command was throw them in the river and drown them. So, a pretty drastic thing to do. So she did this. Why did she do this? Because she loved him so much. She didn't want to throw him in the river? Absolutely. She loved him too much to cast him in the river. But it says that it was by faith. By faith, he was hidden. Not because of fear, and not even because of love, but because of faith, he was hidden. Okay? Sometimes we think that fear is a great emotion, and it is. Sometimes we think love is a great emotion. But even stronger than that, in this context, faith is the strongest reason why he was hidden. Okay? And why was he hidden? Because his parents would have known that after 400 years of captivity, they were about due. God was about due to release his people from here. And they knew there was something special about this baby, so they wanted to do everything they could to preserve him. They must have felt that there's a special call of God. Maybe they knew at that time there's something about this child. Just like Mary knew there was something about her child. You know, Moses was the prophetic one who came as a baby, and he was the Redeemer of Israel. Jesus came as a baby, and he was the Redeemer of the whole world. So there was something special about these babies, even though they looked normal. They just looked like a baby, that there was something of God upon their lives. So as she released him into the river, she was actually doing what the royal decree was, to put your kid in the river. Well, she didn't throw him in the river, but she did put him in the river. So she partly complied, smart lady, she's partly complied with the royal decree that you will put the child into the river. But she put him in a safe place. So she exercised her smarts. She exercised wisdom. She exercised faith. Okay? She was not fearful. She was not anxious. She didn't say, well, there's nothing else I can do, so I'm just going to throw the baby in the river and just see. God can deliver him. No, she did absolutely everything that she possibly could. Then she trusted God. Sometimes we just throw our hands up in the air in fear or dread or, whatever, and just say, well, God, you do it. But God actually wants us to do everything we can possibly do. And then he takes over and he does his part. So she did all, when she could no longer hide him, she did all she could do, put him in that little ark of deliverance, and then she stationed his sister, okay, because this is the baby boy. There's Aaron, there's Miriam, and there's little baby Moses, okay? This is the story of Moses and his mum Jochebed. And his sister, that's Miriam, that's little Miriam. So she's saying, I want you to go and stand over there and watch what's happening. Tell me what's going on. So this faith must have pleased God. Her faith must have pleased God, and she did everything she could. And then she left it over to the Lord. Put the sister there to watch what was happening, and then she probably went home. Okay? So this is the next part of the story. So then the daughter of Pharaoh, okay, this king who has said, kill all these Israelite children. The daughter of Pharaoh, who would have probably hated the Israelites just like her father, because when you live in a household full of hate, then it kind of penetrates your world as well. So the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark, the little vessel, among the reeds, she sent her maids to get it. Now, as you read this, historians will say, now why on earth would the daughter of Pharaoh go down to the river to bathe? It was a dirty river, okay? It's the Nile River. It was a dirty river. Why would she even go down to bathe? But at that exact time, in that exact place, there was the little vessel with the baby in it. The timing of God was perfect, okay? Is she the perfect candidate? Probably not. She's the daughter of Pharaoh, okay? And she's about to discover a Hebrew baby. It says when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. So he was probably quiet until then he starts crying. Okay? The baby wept. Crying baby. Oh. So she had compassion on him. Suddenly her heart is touched by the baby's cry. Okay? The mother's heart in her is suddenly awakened. Is she a single woman? We don't know. Is she a married woman who may have had her children of her own? We don't know. Maybe she had a child that died. We don't know. But it says when the baby wept, she had compassion on him. And she said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. This is one of the Hebrews' children. Oh, what's this kid doing here? This is one of the Hebrews' children. And yet she was having compassion on this child. It must have been quite a moment for her. Like she's actually feeling something for this child, this baby that belongs to these slaves that her father has been threatening and afflicting and oppressing for years. It says, and then his sister, the baby's sister, she just happens to be there too, the little girl, Miriam. She just happens to be there. And what is she doing even speaking to Pharaoh's daughter? She says to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call a nurse for you? This is an amazing story. She's saying, shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women that she may nurse the child for you? Wow. So this little girl is saying to this woman who's like the enemy, the daughter of the enemy, she's saying, shall I go and get someone to take care of this baby for you? She's actually saying to this woman, I know that you care about this baby. Do you want me to go and get the best person to take care of this baby so you don't have to? I know you care. But I can get someone to really take care of this baby for you. This is amazing. This is such a God thing. And so this little girl is basically saying, I can find someone who will take care of this baby for you. You know, this was not her baby, but there's something that had already happened in her heart. There's something that already had happened in her heart. You know, I heard someone say recently, you didn't come from my tummy, but you came from my heart. And that's exactly what happened here. This child was not hers, but suddenly it was hers in here. And what this child said consolidated that fact. And so what did she do? Immediately, she says to this child, she says to Miriam, Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. In other words, she just gave her permission immediately. Yeah, I want you to go because you probably know the best person for the job. I don't. But you do. She said, yeah, go. And so the maiden went. Maiden, I guess Miriam must have been around 12, maybe 13, something like that. It says maiden, it doesn't say child. So the maiden went and called the child's mother. So Miriam basically went home and said, Mum, quick, I've got a great opportunity for you. This is so God, okay? The maiden went and called the child's mother. And then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, okay? So Pharaoh's daughter is saying to the child's Jochebed, her name is, saying to the real mother, take this child, not take your child because she doesn't know, take this child away and nurse him for me and I will give you your wages. Wow! So cool. How cool is God that she, because of her faith, her faith is being rewarded by the Lord. She actually sees that her son, her baby, her little boy, is safe, and he's in the royal household. I mean, you can't get any higher than that. He's in the royal household. Pharaoh's daughter is calling her and saying, I want you to take care of this child. And she's going, this is my boy. This is my boy. She didn't know it, but it's my boy, okay? And then she's saying, I'm going to pay you. I'm going to pay you as well. Double blessing, okay? I'm going to pay you as well. So the woman took the child and she nursed him. Wow, this sounds so wonderful. What a happy ending. But this is not the ending. This is just the beginning. So the woman took the child, so she took the baby home and she nursed him, okay? So this is wonderful. And the child grew. And then she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter. This must have been really difficult. Then she brings him back. She brings him back to Pharaoh's daughter. And he became her son. Wow. So the birth mum hands over her son to this adoptive mum. And the adoptive mum, Pharaoh's daughter, she called his name Moses. Because she said, because I drew him out of the water. I drew him out of the water. So she actually named him, which is pretty amazing. His own mum did not name him, but his adoptive mum named him. She said, his name will be Moses because I drew him out of the water. And so she didn't really draw him out of the water. God did. God did, okay? But, God honours. So this girl comes back with her own mother. She nurses her own child. She's paid, but now she has to give him back, But God can do exceedingly abundantly over all we ask or think. In Ephesians 3 it says this, now to him who's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we ask or think, according to the power that works in us, to him be glory in the church by Christ Jesus to all generations forever and ever. So here we see this, God has done exceedingly abundantly for this mother, but now it seems like she's having to give him away again. Okay, she's released him once and now she's had to release him again. And sometimes we feel like there's things that we have to release. And can we trust God? We trust him, he rewards us. And then he asks us again to release. Okay? But we have to continue to trust him because he always does above and beyond what we always think. There's always the big picture with him. So when you go back to looking at this, it's interesting to note mother. You've got two mothers here. You've got the birth mother and you've got an adoptive mother, okay, in this story. But the word mother, I want to look at that. The word mother in Hebrew means strong water. Really interesting, strong water. And where does it come from? It comes from two pictures, okay? One picture is a picture of an ox, which speaks of strength, and the second is a picture of water, okay? It's an original pictographed script. And out of these two letters comes a sense that the Hebrews used something that they used to do in their everyday life to make glue. This is how they made glue, okay? They would boil the animal skins in water, and as the skin broke down, a sticky, thick liquid would form on the surface of the water, okay? And this thick liquid was removed and used as a binding agent, and it was called strong water. And it's actually the word that means mother, because it's glue. And the mother's like the glue that holds the family together. Is that cool or what? Who remembers clag glue at school? Yeah, it's like that. It's like that. The glue. The glue. That's the word mother in Hebrew. The mum holds the family together. You know, often that's not to devalue fathers, because most of the time the men are the hunters and the gatherers, and they're out working hard to provide. But the mother's like the one who holds the family together. And so that's what it means in Hebrew, strong water. And interestingly, this mother, Jochebed, it was the strength of her that held her family together. Her 3 children, Aaron, Miriam and Moses, all 3 of them were the ones who really served God greatly. If you read in the Old Testament, Aaron was like the first high priest and the founder of the Aaronic priesthood for Israel. Miriam, the girl, she was a gifted prophetess, she was a poetess, she was a musician and closely associated with her 2 brothers in the history of Israel. And the baby that we're talking about, Moses, he becomes a great leader of the people of God. You know, he wasn't just an ordinary baby. He was Moses. And the clever design of his mum to preserve his life is what sustained him. So if we go back, let's go back to verse 10 here. It said, the child grew and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter and he became her son. So she called his name Moses, saying, because I drew him out of water. And we talk about, we see the great sacrifices that both the mothers gave. You know, one had to relent and the other took up, and then the other relented and the other took up. There must have been incredible heartbreak. There must have been incredible sacrifices. And she became her son. It says he became her son. That must have been a very, very difficult time. But Pharaoh's daughter was also a very courageous woman because she was going against the orders of her father. She was going against his orders as well. She was willing to go against him by giving permission originally to Miriam to go and get someone to raise his child and to just actually have that child within the courts. She must have had incredible wisdom herself to be able to get favour for Moses to become part of the royal household because he was one of the slaves' children. So she must have had incredible wisdom as well. So it was a combination of the love of both of these mothers that were saved Moses from a cruel death. It preserved him to bless the whole world, basically. The birth mother, Jochebed, what did she have? She had love, she had faith, she had courage. The adoptive mother, Pharaoh's daughter, what did she have? She had a heart of compassion, she protected him, she brought him into her household, and she nurtured him. And these are all qualities in these 2 women. These are qualities of a real mum. The love, the faith, the courage, the compassion, the protection, and the nurture. You know, we look at these things and we think, you know, what is this all about? You know, it's all about the purposes of God. And as we go into the Hebrews chapter 11, it says, by faith Moses, listen to this, when he became of age, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Wow, that must have broken her heart. By faith, he didn't do it out of vindictiveness, he didn't do it out of anything but faith. Remember, his parents moved by faith, and now Moses moves by faith. It says by faith, when he was old enough, when he became of age, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. So Pharaoh's daughter had raised him up, said, you're my son, you're my child, you're my son. But after a period of time when he's old enough, he's saying, you're not my mother. You're not my mum. That must have broken her heart. Why? It says he chose rather to suffer affliction. So instead of being in the royal household and pampered as part of the royal family, pampered as a favoured son, he said, no, I don't want that position. He said, I choose rather to suffer affliction with the people of God, because these were ungodly. The Egyptians were pagans. They were ungodly. He said, I choose to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin. So he had inherited the godly values of his godly parents. And even though his mum only raised him for a short amount of time, she would have continued to pray for him. She must have instilled enough values in him at that young age and continued to pray for him. That's a mother's heart, okay? So that when he was old enough, he made that decision. And he esteemed the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt. He had it all, but he felt like he had nothing unless he was with his people and serving his God. Amazing. Amazing. He esteemed the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he looked to the reward. You know, a lot of people think, wow, royal family, you got it all. That's your reward. Position, title, you're a prince. But no. He was looking to the reward. That was to be with his people and to be right with his God and serving his God. It says by faith, okay? By faith he forsook Egypt. He turned his back on those things, not fearing the wrath of the king. He wasn't afraid of what might happen to him if he walked away. He feared God more than he feared the king. It says, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. He had all the visible blessings that a person could want, but he didn't want that. It says he endured as seeing him who is invisible. He understood the hand of God over his life and in his life. So what do we learn? What do we learn from all this? You know, we learn from Jochebed, we learn from Moses' mother, okay? That when you've done all you can, then you continue to trust God and you continue to pray. Because she would have continued to trust God for her son and continued to pray. And years later, when he was old enough to make his own decision, he made the right decision. Okay? Even though he was raised in that household, and she would have thought that's going to influence him, that's going to affect him. And sometimes we think when our kids go to university or they go out here or they go over there, that that's going to influence them for the wrong reasons. If we continue to believe God and continue to pray, you know, they can come back. And that's what he did. He came back when he could make the choice for himself. And he made that choice by faith. This is an interesting story because you've got a godly birth mother and you've got a pagan adoptive mother. They both sowed into his life. They both loved him. And we cannot limit God. You know, we cannot limit God in our situation. We cannot say this or that. Oh, well, this will happen or that will happen. We need to trust God. And he can use whoever and however he wants to. You know, what else do we see? We see if we don't chase our dreams and make big decisions, then wonderful things may not happen in our lives. If she had just followed through, she would have lost her son. But she believed God, and by faith she moved. She believed God, and the miracle happened. She saw something. They both saw something in that child. They both saw something. And they knew that the hand of God was there. And God worked all things together because Moses was called according to his purposes. And God will work all things together for us, no matter what is against us. no matter what the odds are against us, if we will move in fear, not in fear but in faith. It shows the power of a godly life. It shows the power of a praying mother. It shows the power of our prayers to influence others for good. So this is a tale of two mothers, but the one who served God was the one who was rewarded ultimately. The one who served God was the one who was rewarded ultimately. You know, Pharaoh's daughter, I feel kind of sorry for her, but there was probably an opportunity for her at some point to know the God of Moses. But we don't know that, we just assume it. So Lord, I just thank you for your story here. I thank you that your word is full of so many stories that give us insights